I love movies so much.
Me too, Wolfie, but today we're talking all about your TV show. The Creep Tapes just finished up its first season with a wildly uncomfortable finish. Poor choice of words there. Does the TV series live up to the two skin-crawling movies? Well, let's get into it. Hey everybody, I'm KillJoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. When the first two episodes of the Creep Tapes came out, I initially said that I really enjoyed the series and I couldn't wait to see more. Now after season 1 has ended, I definitely have some more complex thoughts on everything that Patrick Brice, Mark Duplass, and the rest of the creative team here has brought to us to continue this franchise. We're about to get into spoilers for the first 6 episodes of the Creep Tapes here, but you can currently watch it on Shudder and AMC Plus if you have not seen it yet. My quick spoiler-free review: if you're a fan of the movies, you'll definitely be a fan of the show. I think there's a lot going on here that freaking rocks. Some weird stuff too, but mostly things that rock. The premise for the Creep Tapes is to show us more of the films Peach Fuzz here has made that were teased to us at the end of the original movie. I would say that the first 4 episodes fall under that category. What I loved most about these first 4 episodes were the unique situations created and Mark Duplass's performance. I could just watch this guy go crazy all day long. All of the ridiculous characters that he pretends to be, like Jeff Daniels, no, not that one, to a crazed crime doc fanboy, make me squirm. In terms of the setups throughout all of the episodes, I really enjoyed the birdwatching one, but I think the dead body in episode 4 had to be my favorite. Josh Rubin was also my favorite victim in the entire first season. While I appreciate the various setups that we got throughout these first 4 episodes, it does kind of feel like diminishing returns at a certain point though. It worked for the first episode to reestablish what this series is all about. It kind of feels like a successor to the first film in that way, but then the next 3 episodes sort of just do exactly the same thing. I feel like some of these first 4 episodes just feel a little underwhelming. Like, you don't necessarily get the awkward humor as hard as you do in a lot of the movies. The kills are very realistic, which I think is something a lot of people love about this show, but nothing hits as hard as Aaron's death from that first movie, which is like so hard to watch and so simple. It's upsetting because Aaron has so much trust in Joseph in that first film. He is not going to turn around. He totally trusts that this guy is going to just come up on the park bench. They're going to have this conversation together about what is going on in his life, but realistically, he's this murderer who's been doing this to multiple people throughout like however long of time. That's what makes that first Creep so tragic. I just don't feel like any of the deaths in these first 4 episodes really hit that same harrowing energy. Maybe Mike in the first episode, but that's about the closest they come. There's a lot of fun moments in these first 4 episodes, but I feel like they rarely stick the landing. The last 2 episodes, however, gave me everything I wanted from this series and more. Episode 5, for instance, titled Brant, experiments with the typical formula, something the Scream franchise will likely never do. It poses the question, what if the victim just doesn't show up? It ends up being a character study on Wolfie that even dives into some supernatural territory. In the movies that preceded the show, we hear Mark Duplass's character talk a lot about wolves. Sometimes he even talks about having a wolf inside of him and his various victims. He might be talking about the Peach Fuzz mask that is literally a wolf, or a lot of the stuffed baby wolf animal dolls or whatever that he gifts to his victims or just carries on his person. We even learned in episode 6 that he has one of his own that he snuggles with. The point being though, episode 5 dives a little more into his alleged split personality. The Peach Fuzz mask seems to take on a life of its own. He finds it in the bag to his surprise. He's like, I didn't pack this, how did you get in there? He's yelling at it like it's a person. Later on in the episode, it actually manifests into a person that he has a conversation with for the majority of this episode. Again, the victim does not show up, but the camera is still rolling. Director Patrick Brice has made posts about all the various episodes of the Creep Tapes over on his Instagram, and he talks a little bit about how you can interpret this episode as something that's entirely happening in the dude's head. Now, it's a really ambitious swing because this series is found footage, so that wouldn't necessarily make a bunch of sense, but you kind of have to suspend your disbelief a little bit with episode 5 in particular. This one is swinging for the fences, and whether it worked for you or not, I just really appreciate it. This is a big standout moment from the Creep franchise and easily the most experimental thing they've done to date. It's a glimpse inside of this character's head without telling you too much about him, which I really like. It just kind of shows you his inner workings, but doesn't necessarily reveal everything there is to know about him. Diving deeper into that too, I feel like the relationship here is very similar to one that an artist may have with oneself. There's this drive to make some great work played by the Peach Fuzz mask here, while it's countered by the more human side in Mark Duplass. When you're an artist of any variety in life, you want to create something. You have to deal with the fact that you have to put in like unfathomable amount of hours into something if you're truly going to make some great work that people are going to dig. But then that's of course countered by the human side where it's like like, you gotta take care of yourself, you gotta sleep, man. It's almost like the Peach Fuzz mask takes on a life of its own and it forces Mark to make these tapes or something, but really, I think it's all just happening inside of his head. I feel like it's a metaphor for the artist's struggle, but replace art with murder. The Creep franchise has always had a little bit of that. Like, going back to the first movie, you can tell that this guy, like, loves art, he loves movies, he loves books, he loves just fiction in general. He loves telling stories. That's why he's a pathological liar and does the things that he does. Episode 5 is one of the deepest dives into that side of the character that we've ever seen. I really loved it. Episode 6, however, is a much more literal reveal about things happening in his life. We specifically learn more about his relationship with his mother. It's one of the hardest things to watch in the entire franchise, like, bar none. Now, fans of the franchise will remember in the very first movie, Patrick Brice got on a phone call with this character Angela, who is apparently his sister, as confirmed by that same voice over the phone, which is played by Mark Duplass's real-life wife, which I think is really funny. If you put all of that into consideration with this last episode, it makes the family dynamic even more interesting. Just like the titular Creep character we have been following throughout this entire franchise, we learn that the mom is also a killer and kind of does things in the same way as her son. So maybe the son takes after the mom a little bit and Angela has just kind of removed herself from this family of killers. Maybe she leads a normal life. I don't know, but I really want to meet her at some point. Fingers crossed they get a season 2 and they're able to do something like that. Something else I want to bring up about that first film is that in one of the tapes that he sends to Patrick Brice's character Aaron in the first movie, he specifically says that, like, wolves, when they get really close to something, they tend to kill it. I think that's emphasized really well with the mom character here, to say that yes, she's in the same mindset, or kind of a same character essentially, to her son. The episode is all about her having a lover named Albert, and her son doesn't really appreciate that. It's why halfway through the episode, he plants an axe in the back of his head. It's almost like some jealous Peter Pan syndrome shit. I don't know. It is really interesting, and again, a very great character study on both of these characters, not just the mom, but also the Creep that Mark plays. He has so many different names. The mom calls him Wolfie here, so I think I'm just gonna call him Wolfie moving forward. Peach Fuzz is its own entity, as we learned from episode 5. God, this character is complex. Now, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, because before he kills Albert, there is so much uncomfortable lead up that we have to talk about. Wolfie goes home to visit his mom after watching Forrest Gump. He also kills somebody that is hanging out in the back of his trunk. The relationship that he has with his mom seems to be the only stable one that he has in his entire life. They're both killers, and that's some common ground that they can relate on. She has a room all made up for her son, where they literally listen to his favorite song from Creep 2, which is a really nice reference. Sarah loves her juicy fruit, baby. And then there's even an obligatory scene where Mark Duplass gets naked and hides in a hot tub. If you thought we were going to get a continuation of the Creep franchise and not see this guy naked again, you would be very wrong. Now, the mother and son here get into an argument about how she didn't breastfeed him when he was a kid. This is not something that mothers and sons typically get into arguments about. My God, I think it makes for one of the most uncomfortable moments in the entire franchise thus far. They argue about this over dinner when Albert is still alive, and this poor guy, I mean, is just in the worst situation that the Creep has ever created, I think. Thankfully, he gets an axe in the head, because I think that's a better fate than having to sit at that dinner table any longer. And while they're burying this guy, Mark Duplass's Creep asks his mother, "Is it too late for us?" At first, it almost seems like he's asking if what they're doing is wrong, like asking his mom that, trying to maybe like get on the right path again. This is something that's very relatable to a, just a son to a parent relationship. A lot of the time, you look to your parents for guidance. That seems to be where our Creep's character is right now, which again, there's a lot of relatable elements to him, even though he is so far removed from typical societal values. The mom says she's not mad at him for killing her lover. It's not like the biggest deal. She's also a killer. She doesn't really mind. But then he repeats the question, and then, yeah, he starts breastfeeding. He's like, what is he, like 50? Oh my God, man, I was visibly and audibly upset. I was screaming no at my TV for a good like 10 minutes after it concluded. Even though I have some little criticisms of Creep Season 1, I think this show delivered on everything that we want from a continuation to this franchise. I think these guys need a Season 2 to flesh out this concept more. Like, I really want to see where this goes moving forward. I think a lot of the time when horror movie franchises go to TV, they tend to lose a lot of those subtle little elements that make the movie so great, but not with Creep. I think during the first 4 episodes, I was a little worried about that, but then again, some of the tapes on this guy's shelf aren't going to be the most exciting thing ever. That's why the Aaron tape is his favorite. It makes sense that they approached it this way, even though some of the episodes do end up kind of feeling like filler. But however you feel about the first 4 episodes, the last 2 is exactly what I'm looking for from any franchise continuation from Creep. We get a little bit of an insight into what this character is, and a little more about his situation with other family members and just just other people in his life. Season 1 of this show proves to me that Patrick Brice and Mark Duplass know what makes their franchise so great, opposed to some other horror TV shows out there. Overall though, I loved the Creep Tape Season 1, and I hope that two things happen moving forward. Give these guys a Season 2, and also get them in the next VHS film. They better be one of the writer-directors here, man. We all want it. Make it happen, Shudder. Before we wrap up today's review, please make sure to check out my new channel, KillJoy Jake Retro, where I'm posting in-depth video essays. Where this channel is all about the future of horror, that page will be looking back at some of the classics from the past. My new video on Black Christmas goes up at the end of next week. Don't miss it. What did you guys think about the first season of the Creep Tapes? Leave me something about it in the comments below. Thank you all again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.